There's no way this is gonna work. Alright, I'll just suck it up. Hi, is this the Chief Hardware Engineer of Sega? I'm the leading director of Sonic Team. I'm calling you today to ask for help with a little problem me and my team have run into. Yeah, you see, after Sonic 2, we wanted to make a game that was even bigger than before, but we're not going to be able to fit the whole package into this one ROM cartridge. Yeah, and the deadline's coming soon. And I know it would be just better to just... I know at this point it would be best to just cut off our work and then fit what we can in just one cartridge, but... Well, is it possible you can make the first game connect with the second so that we can still get the full product out there? You see what you can do? Alright, thank you. And oh, while I still have you, I've been hearing a lot about this Neptune project. Can you tell me anything about that? Hello? Let's see how this turns out. Yeah, this turned out for the best. Hello, I'm David, and this is my look at Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. Oh yeah, if it wasn't obvious enough from the intro, Sonic 3 had one hell of an interesting development cycle. It's no secret that when it comes to making a sequel to a successful project, escalation is just natural. But dear lord did the developers try to raise that peak Sonic 2 had left them on. Out of all the ambitions they had for this game, the largest one was to make something bigger than before. Literally, the whole game wasn't able to fit onto just one Genesis cartridge, and this was something they knew early on. The only choice that was left was to release what they had finished thus far, or were able to fit into the one cartridge, and then put what was left in another released. But it didn't end there. To help avoid the games from feeling like two separate products that were meant to be one, Sega reverse engineered their technology used for implementing cheat codes at the time to combine two games together. The resulting combination of Sonic 3 with Sonic and Knuckles was Sonic 3 and Knuckles. For the sake of this review, I am only reviewing Sonic 3 and Knuckles, not Sonic 3 or Sonic and Knuckles individually, nor compare contrasting between the standalone titles or the finished product. I am only referring to the completed Sonic 3 and Knuckles in my analysis, criticisms, and praises for this game. So, with that said, it's story time with Daddy David. After the Death Egg was disabled in Sonic 2, the remains of the Space Fortress crash-landed on the mysterious floating land of Angel Island. The weight of the large contraption alone was enough to push the estate down into the oceans, stopping the place from soaring the skies once more. Seeing this, Sonic and Tails waste no time and fly out to investigate these events, only to be interrupted by...
Oh no!
How dare you try to infiltrate my home?
Bitches, your name is level 9, coming to this place for shits and troubles. So take a step back unless you wanna get knocked, cause I'm a bad motherfucker with some money.
My brother!
Don't look at you, Sonic, cause you think that you're fast, but if you go around, then you know
What?
cause you're right,
These are too much. The ratings are off the charts. It's overloading the system. It's gonna blow! Well, looks like I'm doing the rest of the review outside. Anyway, our heroes are interrupted by Knuckles the Echidna, a native of the island who knocks the blue blur out of his super state, stealing all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds. In chase of the red bastard, Sonic and Tails discover that Robotnik has unleashed another one of his mechanical armies on Angel Island, and soon sets the jungles ablaze. As Sonic and Tails continue, they encounter Knuckles several more times, and he's always one step ahead of them, finding many ways to delay our heroes. Eventually, Sonic and Tails reclaim the Chaos Emeralds and discover that Robotnik is working to relaunch the Death Egg. While they fail to stop it from liftoff, they do, however, stop it from reaching orbit, and the Death Egg crash lands on Angel Island for a second time. Later, Sonic and Tails witness Knuckles leaving from a secret room hidden within the hillside and enter it after he leaves. In there, they discover the underground shrine of the Master Emerald, a massive jewel said to be created by the gods and the source of power to the Chaos Emeralds. The Master Emerald takes the Chaos Emeralds and morphs them into the Super Emeralds. After restoring the color to each of the emeralds, Sonic is able to transform into the godlike Hypersonic, and Tails finally achieves his super state with his
Flicky Army of Death.
Eventually, our heroes track down Robotnik, but he attempts to escape via a flying battery much akin to the Winged Fortress from Sonic 2. Very akin. You seriously did that twice? Our heroes wind up in the hot deserts of Angel Island, where they take shelter in this pyramid to protect themselves from the scorching heat. Upon traveling deeper underground, they discover not only the Death Egg, but also the underground shrine of the Master Emerald, which is stolen by Robotnik, and Knuckles gets tased for his troubles. Realizing his mistakes, Knuckles helps Sonic and Tails to reach the Death Egg, which is taken off again and is quickly reaching orbit. Our heroes just barely manage to reach the Death Egg, where they have one final duel with Robotnik. After they whip his fat ass into next month, our heroes reclaim the Master Emerald and return it to Knuckles. Angel Island soars into the skies once more, and the Red Bastard sees our heroes off as they fly on home to whatever adventure awaits them next, ending Sonic 3. But Knuckles... Well, Knuckles just cleans up the last of the badnik robots Sonic left on the island, and nothing more really happens, honestly. I have to commend the developers for inserting story sequences into the gameplay like this. It makes for a much livelier experience and flows much more like a knife through butter rather than a rock into another rock. The transitions between zones, Knuckles fucking with our heroes, the process of transforming the Chaos Emeralds into the Super Emeralds, it's just that cherry on top that makes for a delicious sundae. But we can't forget about the Jimmies and Sprinkles. Some of the many new additions made to this game are included, but are not limited to, the complete overhaul of redesigned and reworked sprite models, rearranged musical pieces for the second act of zones, when before every zone had only one overarching composition. 3 new types of shields have replaced that classic blue orb from the last few games. They can protect the player's character from certain elemental properties such as fire, water, and electricity. Additionally, Sonic gains a new ability with either one of these new shields equipped, performed by pressing the jump button twice. With the Fire Shield, he can do a mid-air dash. The Bubble Shield, in addition to granting Sonic a bounce attack, protects any one of the player characters from drowning. Then, my favorite, the Electric Shield allows Sonic to perform a double jump, as well as anyone to draw in rings. Unfortunately, you can't stack the shields, only have one at a time. Just don't jump into the water with a Fire Shield or Electric Shield, you'll lose them both. Individual playable characters now have their own unique abilities to help distinguish themselves from the blue blur. In Sonic 2, you had the option to play as Tails, but all he was another Sonic wearing a different skin. In this game, however, Tails has the ability to rotate his 2 tails like helicopter blades and take to the skies. How realistically, I don't know. Hey, they can make mincemeat out of bosses, though. To do this, all you need to do is press the jump button and then mash it over and over again to ascend to the skies. Oh, and he can swim with this setup too. Doing these things for too long will eventually tire out the little dude, so watch out. Knuckles, in addition to having his own set of abilities, is also the only character to have events play out differently than if you chose to play as Sonic or Tails before starting the game. For starters, there are elements within the backgrounds of each level that suggest Knuckles' adventure across Angel Island takes place after Sonic and Tails save the day. The Death Egg is nowhere to be found, neither was Robotnik for that matter, at least he shouldn't be, and Knuckles' run ends at Sky Sanctuary, finishing off a robot Sonic failed to destroy in his adventure. Knuckles' own abilities extend to using his Wolverine-like spikes on his hands to climb up walls, as well as somehow having the ability to glide through the air. How, I also have no idea, but hey, it was either that or a 4-headed penis. And just like that, I had to age restrict this video. To glide through the air with Knuckles, press the jump button, then press and hold it again. While you can't maneuver Knuckles to extend your own air time, you can turn him left or right and attach to a wall if you come into contact with one. You first need a glide beam in order to stick to a wall, and it needs to be a flat one, or else Knuckles won't attach to or climb to it. If Knuckles hits the ground while gliding, he'll slide along it for a second or few and get up afterwards. Letting go of the jump in mid-flight, Knuckles will drop it to the ground like a rock, and you can't influence him when he does this, so be careful. At the end of every first act in the zone are mini-bosses, referred to as such because they're not as challenging as the actual boss fights, and nowhere near as large and in charge. Well, most of the time. Last but not least, among the many new additions made to this game is an automatic save feature. Whenever you finish a zone or collect an emerald, your progress is immediately saved. With this, you can continue from the beginning of whatever zone you left off on, with all the emeralds you have collected thus far. After beating the game, you can select any zone you'd like to start off from, and continue the game from there. There is a limit of 8 save slots, and each one can hold a different selection of characters. Sonic and Tails, Sonic alone, Tails alone, and Knuckles for his own adventure. However, you can't change the characters in a slot after it has been created, so be careful how you want to use this space. If you ever want to, you can delete the data in that slot, but after that, it's gone for good. All of these new additions, the redone sprite models, the rearranged music for second acts, the new elemental shields, unique character abilities, mini-bosses, the new save feature, they make for a better, deeper experience than Sonic 1 or 2. Sonic 1, for as much as everyone deems it a classic, was very clunky and confused. Sonic 2 smoothed those bridges, but it suffered from some pretty massive difficulty spikes near the end. That is, unless you know how to abuse the game. Sonic 3 and Knuckles, however, feels much friendlier to less experienced players. The controls are not really that complicated, despite all the new abilities, and with them, younger players can learn a whole lot too. Like that some problems require certain skills to resolve. I know I'm stretching it a bit, but still. And that was a lot of Jimmies and Sprinkles, wasn't it? Well, for the actual ice cream of this sundae, it's a lot meatier than before. Sonic 1 had 19 levels among 6 zones. Sonic 2 had 20 levels among 11 zones. Sonic 3 and Knuckles has 25 levels among 14 zones. Yeah, they certainly set out to make something bigger. Just looking at maps of the levels themselves not only shows some massive layouts, but also a mixture of Sonic 1 and 2's level design that makes for some well-balanced, speedy platforming. Starting off with Angel Island, the zone, not the estate, we have something that eases us into the game's expanding nature. Well, about as much as Napalm can. Hydro City, or Hydrocity, is basically an underground twisty-turvy something that can be declared as the game's definitive water level, with the aquatic color scheme and water slides everywhere. Yeah, this is basically an indoor water park. Marble Garden sucks, moving on. Carnival Night, much like its Sonic 2 counterpart Casino Night, is weird. It's much faster paced than Casino Night, but what makes it strange is... oh, for God's sakes. What?
This is very similar to Casino Night Zone in Sonic 2, packed with bumpers and casino-themed tricks, as well as the infamous barrels. These barrels are rather infamous for...
I remember the first time I got here. It took me 12 hours to do. Just going up and down. Up and down.
Okay, whatever, moving on.
Ice Cap is... Launch Base, a bit more focused on platforming in the first act, but picks up the pace for something epic in Act 2. Mushroom Hill. Flying Battery is a lot like a maze. There are a few routes that feel like they go nowhere, and that kind of design always turns me off in these games. It just makes me want to turn it off. Zandopolis. Nope. Lava Reef is very hostile, lots of fire and lava everywhere, until it cools down? What? Leading us to Hidden Palace, which is just a boss fight with Knuckles, or completely superfluous if you're playing as him. Sky Sanctuary is possibly the only level in this franchise I know you can fall back down to where you started, if you're not careful enough, and has 3 boss fights. Or in Knuckles' cases, it's just a boss fight. The Death Egg has seen some improvements in Sonic 2. No longer is it just one big-ass hallway, it's now 2 full-fledged electric and gravital acts.
With loopy-loos! Whee!
Doomsday, the final zone of the game, and is only accessible if you collect a full set of emeralds in-game. It's also where the controls suddenly change, so mash the jump button continuously to advance, avoiding meteors and missiles, as well as collect as many rings as possible, and beat Robotnik into the next month. I can confidently say the developers of Sonic 3 and Knuckles accomplished the goals they set out for this game. Before, it may have only taken an hour or two to beat Sonic 1 or 2, but you can definitely expect this game to take you 3 to 4 hours long. Levels go on for much longer than they used to, but Sonic 3 and Knuckles successfully managed to create something that's also nice and fast. Alas, those 25 aren't the only levels in the game. There's still the special stages and the new bonus stages. You might remember in Sonic 2 that if you collected 50 rings then cross a checkpoint, stars will form over the lamppost and jumping into them will transport you to a special stage. Well, stars still form over the thing, so does that mean the means of collecting emeralds in this game are the same as before?
Oh, fuck no.
In this game, the stars that form over the checkpoints are portals to the bonus stages, levels the player can enter to obtain goodies like rings and one of the 3 elemental shields. Depending on how many rings you have in your possession, you will enter one of the 3 bonus stages. If you have at least 25 rings, you'll enter the slot machine. With at least 35, the gumball dispenser. 15 above, the electrical orb stage. So then, if that's the case, is it like Sonic 1 where you have to reach the end of an act with 50 rings and then jump into the giant ring to access the special stage?
Kind of.
There are no prerequisites for finding the giant rings other than just finding them, and they can be found all over the game. That is until Hidden Palace, but Super Emeralds are not attainable until Mushroom Hill. If you fail to collect all the emeralds before this point, don't worry, you can still collect all of them and then go after the Super Emeralds. However, if you enter this fixed colorful giant ring into the Master Emerald Shrine in Knuckles' secret room with any one of the Chaos Emeralds, you won't be able to go Super with Sonic or Knuckles. You'll have to collect all the Chaos and Super Emeralds before you can see any character in their heightened state. Sometimes a good way to know if a giant ring is nearby or not is to check the game's HUD to see if it is flashing or not. If it is, that means there is one nearby and entry will transport you to this game's special stages. The special stages have been changed yet again, and this time it's all about blue balls. By simply coming into contact with these blue orbs, they will turn red. Your job is to turn all the blue orbs into red ones, but touching a red orb will transport you out of the special stage, with nothing to show for it. By encircling a group of blue orbs with red orbs, the whole patch will turn into rings, and that will count towards turning your blue orbs to red. When all blue orbs are gone, the obstacles in the stage will explode away and the emerald is yours. But be quick about it. The longer you spend in a special stage, the faster it gets, and Sonic automatically runs forward, leaving you to only be able to turn him left or right. Here's a trick if you're having trouble with timing your turns though. That checkerboard aesthetic on the ground, that's actually a grid that the characters run on. I found that if you input commands before characters reach the next line, you can set them to turn in whichever direction you want them to. Just watch out for the star orbs, they're the same thing as the star bumpers from Sonic 1. Other than that, I think... Actually, that's a pretty good segue into the music for this game. Some of you may not know this, but there are a few musical tracks in this game that were composed by the late, great Michael Jackson. I'm not kidding. Jackson already worked with Sega prior on a game based around Moonwalker at the time, so when the company approached him and his team on working on the soundtrack for what was the biggest mascot at the time, was one hell of a deal. However, Jackson asked not to be credited for his work. Some say it was to avoid contractual obligations, others believe it was because he didn't like how the music was changed to play on the Genesis. Regardless, if you listen to some of these tracks, you can definitely hear his influence over the music, especially in Launch Base. This is some pretty great stuff. Sonic the Hedgehog, regardless of the quality of his video games, has had some pretty great music to accompany his 25+ year run. From Mania to Generations, Adventure, both versions of CD, to this game. Sonic 1 and 2 had energetic and upbeat soundtracks, but they were nothing like this game's. This is jammin'. Right, the super transformations. I almost forgot about those. Well, just like in Sonic 2, after collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds, Sonic and Co. are now able to go super, except for Tails. Mutants are allowed in this club by Zano. Before, going super immediately required collecting 50 rings and then jumping. Now it's the same as before, except you have to press the jump button twice in order to activate the transformation. This is so much better, because now you have more of a say in the matter, rather than going invincible basically without your consent. You heard me right, while in their super state, characters are invincible and inflict damage by touch. However, they can still succumb to drowning and being crushed, and death by bottomless pits. Additionally, characters just don't go super permanently. The amount of rings in your possession acts as a timer for how long you will remain in your super state. Every second in a super state consumes a ring, so with only 50 rings, you'll be super for about 50 seconds. You can still collect rings while you're in your super state to extend your time limit, and with a good 120, you'll stay super for 2 minutes. But you're automatically removing your super state whenever you finish an act or when the timer reaches 0. Then you have to collect all those rings again. Every character gets their top acceleration and max speed doubled, but they also have their own abilities heightened in a different way. Supersonic's jump height is doubled, and as Supersonic he has a mid-air dash that propels in whatever direction the player is holding on the D-pad, unlike the Fire Shield, which only propels Sonic horizontally. Hyper Knuckles' gliding and wall climbing speed is doubled, and as Hyper Knuckles, sticking to a wall will cause an earthquake that destroys every Badnik robot on the screen. Super Tail's flying speed is doubled, and he also has his
Flicky Army of Death.
Of course, there are multiple endings depending on who you're playing as and what set of emeralds you've collected. If you fail to collect even the Chaos Emeralds, the Master Emerald will be lost to everyone, and Angel Island will remain in the ocean. But with all 7 Chaos Emeralds, the Master Emerald will be returned to Angel Island, but Knuckles won't see our heroes off after their adventure, in addition to this after-credits teaser to Knuckles' adventure. If you do successfully manage to transform the Chaos Emeralds into the Super Emeralds, the Master Emeralds return to Angel Island and Knuckles tease our heroes off. Knuckles' better endings are exactly the same regardless if you collect the Chaos or Super Emeralds. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is fucking remarkable. It took what the series had already established and continued to add upon its foundation without drastically changing itself, in addition to improving its structure and design. This game nailed that high-speed action Sonic is known for, and it did it in a thought-provoking and satisfying way. The new mechanics this game brought to the table fleshed out the experience in a way that is and has sure lasted through the ages. It's many people's favorite Sonic game for a reason, and I highly recommend it to any player out there looking for something fun to play and to give this game a shot, along with Sonic 1 and 2, despite their flaws.
Finally, it's done and over with. We're not finished with Sonic yet, so join me next time when we'll look at the Blue Blur's first through jump into the 3D world. I would make a joke here about how this game started a tendency in the industry to for games to be released in an unfinished state, but I worked on this video script for like 11 days, and at that point I needed to drop it so I could finally work on my homework for my psychology class. I hope that you enjoyed the video and that you have a wonderful rest of your day afterwards. I'll see you when I look at Sonic Adventure DX. Until next time, I'm David, and I'll catch you on the flip side.